Okay, this video is about Sainte Chapelle, the Holy Chapel, Sainte Holy Chapel in Paris, France. In general, Paris has some of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful cathedrals in the world. Okay, and now Sainte Chapelle was built in 1248. I just want you to see how magnificent the stained glass windows are. What's going on, by the way, is, I wrote this previous book, The Best Christian Art, and one of the goals of my channel is not just to be the best doctor in the world, but also to try to save Western civilization. And I think the younger generation, you don't understand how great Western civilization is. And also, you don't understand how bad these other civilizations are. This multiculturalism is all nonsense. Other cultures are not equal to Christianity. When it comes to things like art, architecture, music, literature, they stink. They stink. They're not 10% as good as Western culture. Western culture is magnificent. That's why everybody wants to live there. And now you've got these billionaire perverts who are trying to ruin everything. I just want you to see. Here's the inside of the Holy Chapel in Paris, France. I mean, it's spectacular. How could you make something more beautiful than that? It's just like, heaven on earth. It's so beautiful and magnificent. Okay, and there's the idea of the arched high ceiling, like the tree canopy in the forest, as one aspires to be with God. It's magnificent, okay? Okay, and it was sort of, they learned from the ancient Romans and the ancient Roman basilicas, the high ceilings. Then they learned from Charlemagne, Charles the Great, the Holy Roman Emperor in 800 BC, and his ideas of making a beautiful church. And they kept on trying to make it more beautiful. That's what Christianity does. It's always trying to make things better, more beautiful, more good. And, I like what Bishop Barron had said. When people see Christian art, they say, well, gee, that is beautiful. And as they look at it more, they say, that is beautiful, that is good. And as then they look at it some more, they go, that is beautiful and good and true. And they realize this is the best that the world has to offer, okay? Because it's inspired by God. All right, now here's just a painting of the vault. And again, the idea that you look up to the ceiling and you just, have this sense of awe, and respect for God, for heaven and all. Okay, now here's a painting from 1715. This was at the time of King Louis XV, and he's departing from a ceremony, but just showing that it's in the public square in Paris, and that it was just natural. These buildings were part of society. They were the biggest, most beautiful buildings in the society to honor God, and that's a good thing. You should have spectacular buildings that suggest the magnificence of the culture, the people, the religion, okay? And now I'm going to show you something here. Here's a modern building, and here's a quote by Thomas Wolfe, the American author. He said, modern buildings, they look like animal cages, and there's always a statue of a turd in front. Compare that. We've gone backwards since 1248, okay? That's a long time ago, 800 years ago, and our buildings are now ugly. And instead of having magnificent statues, we've got a turd in front. This is a degradation. This is an insult. People should speak about this. Everybody should talk about these things because you get what you ask for. If, as a society, we say we want our public square to be beautiful, to be elegant, to honor Christ, to honor God, to be noble, to be magnificent, then that's what you'll get. But if you think this is okay, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a turd. And I can tell you, if the public square says people, this is where it's at, a turd, you're going to be treated like turds, like livestock, and, society is only going to continue to be degraded. This modern art is an insult. It's the emperor's new clothes, hiding the great Western civilization tradition, okay? Now, here's just an example of a typical stained glass window. This is the Passion of Christ, as he was unfairly convicted by Pontius Pilate and the Roman crowd, and they freed Barabbas. Okay, and then he was whipped and tortured and crucified, okay, and he rose on the third day. Most of the people were illiterate in those days. Most of the people nowadays are illiterate too. They're functional illiterates, okay? They don't have any significant knowledge. All right, so they learn from seeing the pictures in the cathedral. That's how you taught the story and the history of Christianity, was through these stained glass windows and other paintings and statues. Okay, now here's a typical statue. This is the front door of the Holy Chapel, Sainte Chapelle. And it just shows, Christ at the Last Judgment and the scales of justice weighed. And, these are all made by nameless, talented sculptors just doing it to the glory of Christ. And this is just a typical door. This is just a typical door. And I'm going to show you other cathedrals later on, just doing one cathedral at a time. And this is like a decent one. It's not even great, and it's still great, okay? A lot of little angels around. It's beautiful. Okay, that's it for Sainte Chapelle, the Holy Chapel in Paris, France. Hope you found that was nice.